across the oceans of the Earth are numerous islands, isolated from other landforms by an effective barrier of salt water. Isolation offers to these islands an ecological opportunity for evolution of plants and animals, many of which are found nowhere else on Earth. The significance of these evolutionary patterns in species has made one island group famous throughout the world. That group is the Galapagos Islands. In 1835, Charles Darwin visited this archipelago. Based principally on the observations he made here, the scientific study of living things was markedly changed. The Galapagos Archipelago is in the Pacific Ocean, 600 miles west of Ecuador, South America. It straddles the equator at the same longitude as New Orleans. The Humboldt Current, rich in marine life, flows through this archipelago and cools the sea. 16 main islands and numerous smaller ones make up a land area of approximately 3,000 square miles. Most islands have both Spanish and English names. The largest, Isabella, or Albemarle, is 75 miles long. The smaller are mere rocks. Although all are of volcanic origin, no one knows exactly when the underwater eruptions first began, or the order in which the various islands of the archipelago were thrust above the sea. Evidence of volcanism is everywhere. Darwin said,
"I scarcely hesitate to affirm that there must be in the whole archipelago at least 2,000 craters."
Most recently active have been Alcedo and Fernandina. When oceanic islands are formed by the emergence of underwater volcanoes, no living things can exist in the fiery and sterile lava. Colonization must come from other land areas. South America's plants and animals are situated closest to the Galapagos Islands. Perhaps the natural rafts of vegetation that flowed out of the rivers of Ecuador and Peru and into the Humboldt Current brought plants, insects, and other animals. Some came by air, and some were carried on or in the bodies of other organisms that made the crossing. That dispersal of this kind occurred many times and against great odds over millions of years is evident in the diversity of life forms. In speaking of the climate, Darwin said,
"Considering that these islands are placed directly under the equator, the climate is far from being hot. This seems chiefly caused by the singularly low temperature of the surrounding water, brought here by the great southern polar current."
On most islands, the coast region is rough and arid. Here and there, between the lava, are small sandy beaches. In what little soil has been formed in the lava rubble, cactus and small shrubs often grow to the ocean's edge. Occasionally, where land and sea meet, salt-tolerant plants, such as the mangrove, green the edges of bays and lagoons. On the smaller islands, where most of the land is below 1,000 feet, there is only the arid vegetative zone. Larger islands, such as Santa Cruz and San Cristobal, have 3 or more zones. Just beyond the shoreline on Santa Cruz is an arid, nearly impenetrable zone of spiny shrubs and cactus. Next is a transitional zone, where tall trees and cactus mix. Above this is the most fertile zone, an area kept moist with mists and occasional rain. The Scolasia tree, relative of the common sunflower, and native only to the Galapagos, thrives here. Food crops are grown in this area. Higher still is the Myconia belt, which consists principally of dense ferns and the endemic shrub Myconia. Both grow up to 10 feet in height. At the summit, an upland zone is composed of ferns and grasses which cover the slopes of extinct volcanoes. Overall, the Galapagos plant roster contains mainly families of plants with previous records of good long-distance dispersal. Groups with poor means of dispersal are absent. The animals of the Galapagos have attracted worldwide attention. It is from one of these animals, the tortoise or Galapago, that the islands take their name. An inhabitant of the islands showed Darwin how tortoises from different islands could be identified by the shape of their shells. They appear to have evolved into two main types with slight variations. This one, with a dome-shaped shell and short neck, is from Santa Cruz Island. Other islands have species with higher saddle-shaped shells and long necks. This animal is from San Cristobal Island, and this one is from Hood. All are vegetarians. When there is no fresh water, moisture is obtained from juicy cactus stems, grass, and other plants. When water is available, large quantities are consumed and stored in their bodies. Another type of reptile with unusual adaptations is the iguana. Two species of this type of lizard are found here. Each has its own peculiar way of living. The marine iguana exists in greater numbers and is common along the shores of most of the islands. Darwin described them this way.
It is a hideous-looking creature of a dirty black color, stupid and sluggish in its movements. The usual length of a full-grown one is about a yard, but there are some 4 feet long. A large one weighed 20 pounds.
When in the water, tail and body propel the animal with a kind of serpentine motion. The legs, although partially webbed, are not used in swimming. Marine iguanas are the only lizards that regularly feed at sea. Their food consists of varied seaweeds found on the ocean bottom and on shore rocks at low tides. The sun-baked lava shores provide a place for these cold-blooded animals to warm themselves after feeding. Burrows are constructed for the purpose of egg-laying. As in many ocean-going vertebrates, marine iguanas are able to drink seawater. Special glands located in the head rid the body of excess salt. It is ejected from the nostrils in a fine spray. The other iguana is also endemic to the Galapagos. Although about the same size as its marine counterpart, the land iguana is usually more brightly colored. The burrows in which it lives often honeycomb the land. Despite their fierce appearance, land iguanas are herbivorous. Cactus flowers, fruits, and stems are preferred foods. When these fall from the plants, they are snatched up quickly. The land iguana can also be trained to take food offered by hand. Two other reptiles represented on the islands are the lava lizard and a snake, a small harmless constrictor. Perhaps no animal group has contributed more to the history of evolutionary biology than the Darwin finches. The birds bear the name of Darwin because they, more than any other living thing, supply the evidence of evolution. The 13 species do not exist elsewhere. Noting that all the species were closely related, but differed from each other mainly in beak structure and habits, Darwin said,
"Seeing this gradation and diversity of structure in one small, intimately related group of birds, one might really fancy that from an original paucity of birds, one species had been taken and modified for different ends."
These modifications or adaptations were the means by which the finches survived in a harsh and isolated environment. Varied bill structures are related to different kinds of food and food getting. Some species hunt seeds chiefly on the ground. Others feed on flowers and fruits. This one adds protein to its cellulose-rich seed diet by grooming marine iguanas of ticks. The warbler finch, with slender and pointed bill, feeds almost exclusively on insects. Recently, an adaptive change in the feeding habits of a ground finch was discovered on distant Wolf Island. In addition to seed eating, the finch pecks at the soft skin of the masked booby until it draws blood. Then it feeds on the blood. The origin of this unique finch-booby relationship is now under study. Other interesting adaptations are known in Galapagos animals, such as the native hawk, which is a distinct species, the lava gull, whose ancestors had white plumage, the nocturnal feeding swallow-tailed gull, and the short-eared owl. All show a remarkable degree of tameness. The Galapagos penguin, one of the world's smallest, lives here in an environment far different from the one it left. For these most northerly dwelling penguins, the cold Humboldt current and fish-filled waters have provided a favorable environment. Most unusual of seabirds is the flightless cormorant. It is found only in the Galapagos. Their small numbers make it an endangered species. Even though it can no longer fly, the habit of wing drying still persists. Flightlessness is compensated for by swimming and fishing ability. The cormorant, like the iguana, drinks seawater when necessary. Excess salt is extracted and drops from the beak as brine. Also rare and endangered is the flamingo. The fewer than 150 that live here are the only flamingos occurring naturally in the Pacific area. Blue feet may not be an adaptive advantage, but they do mark one of the most common and amusing seabirds of the Galapagos, the blue-footed booby. Two other species, the red-footed and the white or masked booby, are also common. Although most of the living things that Charles Darwin observed in these islands are still found here, dangers to their survival are always existent. Even before Darwin came, crews of buccaneer and whaling ships killed or carried off thousands of tortoises for fresh meat and oil. On some islands, there are no survivors. Domestic animals, introduced by man and allowed to run wild, are the worst enemies of this environment. It takes only a few hungry goats to destroy scores of trees and shrubs. And today, goats number in the thousands. No vegetation is immune to attack in their search for food and moisture. For the green turtle, the tortoise, and the iguanas, wild pigs and rats may ultimately be the cause of extinction. Often, within a few hours of laying, the eggs of these reptiles are rooted from their nests and eaten. For some other plants and animals, clearing of more land for cultivation is bound to upset the balance of their natural communities. The Galapagos Islands have been called the Enchanted Isles. Darwin described them as a world within itself. In their oceanic isolation, the process of natural selection has transformed plants and animals into many unique products of evolution. Most of these life forms are still more or less intact, but will they stay that way? A step in the right direction was made when the government of Ecuador declared all of the archipelago a national park, except for areas already settled or cultivated. To provide as much protection as possible for the native plants and animals, and to furnish field facilities for visiting scientists, the Darwin Research Station was established in 1960. An extensive research program for the preservation of the tortoise is already underway in a highland reserve and at the lowland research station. Resident scientists also conduct educational programs for the settlers and tourists. Although tourism has not developed to the extent that it has in other island areas of the world, it is increasing, and the adverse effects of human presence in the Galapagos are bound to increase. Man still has a choice to make here, to exploit it as he has much of the rest of the world, or to handle it gently so that it will remain forever a natural laboratory of evolution.